I got it. Somehow we got it all. We must have been two stuck together. It'll be interesting to see. They start pulling us into training.
So anyway, we thought this would be a great class. We got hooked up with Cisco here and the National Fire Escape Association. They have a website, a lot of good information he'll be going over today. So we thought this would be an interesting class. I'm glad to see people outside the organization, in the building community, building inspectors' offices, and et cetera, here today, because it affects all of us. And we need to be on the same song sheet, kind of catch up with what the code says. This is a life safety issue. And as we repurpose some of these buildings, that becomes more and more important for us. So I don't know, who's here from New York? Man, we are going to need an interpreter. This is going to be bad. This is going to be
Well,
bad.
it's even worse because I'm further north of New York. I'm from Boston.
Boston.
But I am here, this, like you said, you wanted me to start with snow driving 101 first?
Yeah, yeah. I told him last night, we talked on the phone, I told him, I said, you guys can take the snow back up there,
Well, if you all park the car outside, you guys all be fine. But we'll have some fun here, and you'll see that some of this stuff is all up and down the East Coast. And how many of you think they have fire escapes in this city? So this will be a great class.
All right, just two quick things. Bathrooms are down here at the end of the hall. There is a break room downstairs. If you go downstairs and go back around to your left, there's a break room on your right. Has coffee and tables, chairs, etc. And so your exits are duly noted. And I hope you have a good class today. And I think you'll enjoy the knowledge and the experience that these guys have. And the good thing is, as we get into the program, he's going to do some case studies. And so we'll be able to apply this stuff. We won't have to take you and swing you off a fire escape today. We'll do it by video. So I think folks will appreciate that.
The rope she started. Chief, I don't know where.
I've got a second one because looks like we may need it. So who's got the sign-in sheet?
I might need some blank forms too.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over fire escapes, the history of fire escapes. We're going to try to break around 10:15, 10:30, give you some time to go downstairs and grab something. Then we'll break at 12. And then once you guys are back by 1, we'll try to break right around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Anybody caught sleeping when you guys do the change, please, the sleepers, please go to the back, grab a tables, sleep under them, over them. But otherwise, this should be very interesting. The one thing that we're going to be talking about is, fire escapes. They can save lives or they can take them. Now, 25 years ago, these fire escapes were not falling. 50 years ago, these fire escapes were not falling. They were built, pretty rugged. And we're going to use this as an example of what fire escapes did originally and why this was not a big issue. But a lot of the firemen today, when they're training the new firemen, they use that secret code word that in case of fire, don't use the. So, but nobody ever tells the tenants of the building, nobody ever tells anybody else in the building that, in case of fire, that's the last thing I'm getting on. Whereas fire escapes are built to take 100 pounds per square foot. Okay? So let me tell you that once they were originally built in the way they're built today, they're made to take 100 pounds per square foot. What's that mean? Just to make you feel safe. If anybody see the Philadelphia incident on the video clip? The death up in Philadelphia? No? Well, we're going to play it today for you, but basically 3 people fell 4 stories and 1 died, and we'll cover it, and that's why there's sort of an upswing now on fire escape inspections. But one of the lawyers on there said something very, very important that's basically setting up a lawsuit. He said, well-maintained fire escapes never fall. So that's what he basically said to the news people, to basically say what to the owner of the building. It wasn't maintained. So let's talk about this, and then we're gonna get into the details. Because what we're gonna talk to you about today is how fire escapes rust from the inside out, not from the outside in. So at the end of today, we're gonna show you that if you are looking at a fire escape that has rust on it, it took 25 years to finally eat all the paint outside of it, but it's already rotted on the inside, so it's suspect. So we'll prove that to you from case studies. I'm an expert witness on a lot of lawsuits, and one of the lawsuits that helped me prove that was a fireman lawsuit that he fell 3 stories through a fire escape system, and we'll cover that today. But let's take a look at one of the platforms. Let's take a look at that one. 5 by 5, okay? So 5 by 5 is 25 square feet times 100 pounds per square foot. That's built to take a load of 2,500 pounds. So if each fireman weighs 300 pounds, okay, and I've got, 10 firemen, right? That means I'm gonna put 3,000 pounds there in a 5 by 5. Can I fit 10 firemen in a 5 by 5? Let's cut that number in half. I got 5 firemen with all their gear on. Can I fit 5 firemen in a 5 by 5? Okay, so that's only 1,500 pounds. So we got an extra 1,000 pounds. If anybody wants to bring an elephant or whatever, now let's take it down to the people. There's no firemen there yet, but there's 10 occupants in the building that are going to get into this fire escape, which is 5 by 5, and wait for you to come and get them. And they all weigh 150 pounds. Can we get 10 tenants in a 5 by 5? Well, they'll squeeze, but did you ever see 10 tenants in a 5 by 5? So unless they're doing a little bit of shoulders and squeezing, it's not going to happen. So these things are overbuilt. So most houses have, in certain rooms, the building department will say that, certain rooms are made with 2 by 8s, 2 by 10s, 2 by 12s. That's either to meet the 60-pound load per square foot, 80-pound load per square foot. But nobody's building any room to 100 pounds. So this is what it was originally built. So that's why nobody 50 years ago, 75 years ago, and you can tell by the age of the helmets here, that's why nobody was worried about anything. 75 years ago, 50 years ago, nobody was freaking out, because even though these things were starting to rust, guess where they weren't going? Now 25 years ago, we started getting some things that happened, and here's what happened in Boston. Take a look in the back. Use this as a poster. Stick this on a wall somewhere to remind you why you go out and write violations. The photograph there won a Pulitzer Prize from the Herald reporter that took the shot. But the fireman was on there, and basically he was 4th floor, the woman and her niece, and then the fire escape collapsed. He saved himself with one arm. She died, and the niece landed on her. Okay, that was what happened in Boston. Now in Boston in 73, basically what happened was, the law at that time was, you must maintain your fire escape at all times. There was no 5-year rule. So whenever you have maintenance requirements that says you must maintain it at all times, what tends to happen to everything that the push is really on the owner to maintain their fire escapes at all times? Does it happen? So they changed the 5-year rule. So in 40 out of 50 states, about 10 states, the building department writes the violations on fire escapes and maintains the certification. In about 40 states, it's the fire prevention that writes the violations on the fire escape, but the building department may or may not issue permits on the activity of repairing them or replacing them. Okay? So this is what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to go over the history of fire escapes and where they all started and how long they've been around, and everybody thought they'd be gone by today. And he used the word repurposing. That repurposing came, it's been happening for 50 years. A lot of these buildings were supposed to be down, we're supposed to be using George Jetson, skyscrapers in the sky and driving around in vehicles that don't use the highways. But somebody in the meantime invented bubble gum, duct tape, and paper clips, and what have these people been keeping together? Your buildings. And we call fire escapes the bastard child of egress, because here's the funny story about a fire escape. You can take a building and it's 25th to 50th birthday of any building you've ever built. They start swapping out all the electrical, all the plumbing, the roof, all the windows, all the doors. Sometimes the rooms inside get rearranged accordingly, so there's a change of use. Guess what never gets any attention? So a lot of these fire escapes that you're looking at best, they got a paint job to hide the problem, not to fix the problem. And a lot of times, if you want to write this down, when you write a violation, you've been writing the wrong violation because people take you at your word. You've been writing, scrape and paint your fire escape. So guess what happens when you get a violation in your area and you wrote on the violation, scrape and paint the fire escape? Guess what they do? You gotta call two people out, Joe the painter and Bob the builder. Joe the painter comes out and says for this 5-story fire escape that he could paint it for how much? $3,000 to $5,000. But then Joe the builder comes out and says, I can paint this, but I need to fix it first before I paint it, and I need $25,000. And you wrote, scrape and paint. And even though Joe the builder is going to tell the guy, hey, you have some problems there. He's like, my city official wrote, scrape and paint. So write this down, because this is the only thing you'll ever write on a violation, and you got to keep it open-ended. I want you to have your fire escape examined, repaired, then tested. I'm going to cover load testing today. And at the end of this class, you're going to find out that load testing is not what we're really pushing. It's really going to be the trump card you're going to pull out and use whenever somebody's not being truthful with you or forthcoming with you. You're going to pull out the word load test and use it against them. Otherwise, what we're looking for is the refurbishment. Okay? So the document you have in front of you, we're going to cover throughout the whole class. Let's take a look at it. Okay? Now this is, I'm 53. I have a master's degree in reverse stupidity. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. It's just that I've done it so long, the only thing left for me to do is the right thing. So if you want to know all the wrong ways to do it, I got 1,000 ways to screw up a fire escape. Done them all. But then when you eliminate them all, now we can pass it on to you and say, okay, here's what we do. Now all this is from Nationwide. So I teach this very same class, and usually when somebody flies me in, because somebody fell to the ground. So a lot of this started in Seattle, for example. I've done classes from Seattle to San Diego, Chicago to Texas, and from Maine to Florida. Today I'm here, today I gotta fly out of here, I gotta be up in New Hampshire to teach another class to the, the State Department of Public Safety. So we've done, so if you go online, you go to, National Fire Escape Association, there's all our classes. So now your class is gonna be online also, so that somebody from your region can watch your class. So it's one of these things that we had so much information, including there was no documentation, there was no standards, and of all the places that we had some of our greatest success was out in Seattle, Portland, Oregon, New Jersey. Okay, so we've had success in many, many, many states, and again, a lot of it is grassroots. So you think we've had success top down or bottom up? Grassroots, or from the state level coming down with some great ideas for you? So a lot of times it's smaller groups, it's smaller cities that basically start. So this started as a Richmond inspection that I had to do about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, and it turned into this class. Okay? So what do we have? This right here, we can send you the Word document to this, or a PDF of it, and you can manipulate it any way you want. But basically, this was when a state inspector helped me basically say that every state, the building department and the fire department have departmental procedures and guidelines, which is basically their short version of what the hell that law meant that somebody wrote, and what they kind of enforce in that city. So, if you're going to have your fire escape inspected, the design professional or others acceptable to you will read this piece in layman's terms. If you're going to have it repaired, the repair contractor has to read this because he's tied into the first guy who basically did the evaluation. And if you're going to paint it, the EPA came along and said, oh, by the way, you don't think there's any lead on your fire escape that's older than 1978, do you? And the EPA said, you got lead on every one of your fire escapes. So no more welding. This is everybody's fix, quick fix, right? Show up for Joe Welding, the Joe Welder. So we can send you this, or we can make one up for you. Put your website up here, put your contact information there. As you can see, references nobody, you know, who to call or who not to call. So you can manipulate it yourself, or if you, again, as I mentioned, if anybody gives me some cards, we can basically make out contact to you and get you industry standard documentation, okay? So that you can manipulate it yourself. We're going to talk today about lead law. We're also going to talk about OSHA. OSHA plays a very good part of this because, again, I'm glad we have some building officials here because I tripped across, so a lot of times, you know, I don't know everything there, but I tripped across this code when I was teaching a class up in Philadelphia. And that is OSHA 1910.37 says that I can't be in that building repairing it, altering it, or doing anything unless it has two means of egress. So, how many permits have you issued on a building where the fire escape was the last thing you touched, not the first thing you certified? Because when do fires mostly occur on construction sites? Before, during, or after construction? So, if all of a sudden you're going to be running into a building that is under demolition or under repair, imagine that the process for those guys, as the code requires for OSHA, it says you must provide a certified system or provide an alternative means, meaning you can still issue that permit because now they got a scaffolding there and they basically blocked off the fire escape. So imagine what that's going to do. So we're going to talk about how you're going to work with the various departments so that there's automatic triggers that bring in these certifications and gets this back online. And it will take 1 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years to do this. So this is not going to happen overnight, but you just need to take the first step because you're going to get a lot of resistance. And the first resistance is the cost associated with, you know, keeping firemen safe. They want to cut that budget in half. Because too many of you are, you know, surviving is the, but again, this is all about survival. Live fire escapes will take a life. And until it takes a life, nobody's going to do something about it. The next page is a confidence test. There was no confidence test in the nation. You know what you got? Opinion letters. You got a letter that basically stated, to the best of my information and knowledge, believe the fire escape is in conformity with the Virginia Building Code or Fire Code. And that opinion, when it goes to court, what's it worth? Right? So what we created is a confidence test, and this is yes/no questions. And when you read through these yes/no questions, it's going to ask the examiner, the design professional, architect, engineer, or fire escape inspector, is there any rust in any of the connections on that fire escape? Have you verified the connections into the wall in such a manner that it's either a visual inspection or did you load test it? When you get that document back, are you going to feel safe about that fire escape in your city and putting your men on it? Or you want an opinion on it? It looks good to me, you drive by, roll down the window, collect a check. You want a yes/no? You want assurances, not insurance. You want assurances? You want a yes/no questionnaire. So where do you get this? Well, we'll send you a copy in PDF or a Word document, but you can also go to seattle.gov, and it's online. You can download this thing as a Word or PDF. And all you do is basically take the name off the top, put your city seal there, modify any little questions that you don't like, and you've got yourself an industry standard documentation from Seattle Fire Prevention. You don't like that when you go to Portland, Oregon, and get their checklist, which we'll show you today. You don't like that when you go to LA and get their confidence test. Now all these didn't exist, so we started doing these classes. And it became a yes/no question, no longer an opinion. Okay? Today's digital technology lets you do what? See the fire escape without having to go down there. So if you get an evaluation, whether it passes or fails, you don't have to go down there and say, oh my God, the place is falling apart. We're also going to talk to you about some of your buildings are over 35,000 cubic square feet, which means it's supposed to have a construction control document anyway, to begin it and end it, which is not happening in a lot of fire escapes. Industry standard repair documentation. How are you going to fix it? And because it's all bolted, it's pretty simple. Change the bolt, remove the rust. Seal it with 35 to 50 year silicone. If you want to get even more detailed, you go to portland.gov and you get into it. They tell you, down to the paint what they'd like you to use. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you can copy and paste. Today we're going to talk about how fire escapes are built. When I tell you that fire escapes rust from the inside out, I have to prove it to you today. And that's because we did a case, we were an expert witness on a fireman that fell through the fire escape system, so we have to prove how the fire escape rots. So we use that information to help save some lives. We're going to talk about drawings and plans. We're going to talk about how all fire escapes must be continuous to grade, using either a drop-down ladder or a cantilevered staircase that comes to the ground. So all these ladders that are 9 feet from the ground that you can jump, we're going to talk about that. In some cases, the law doesn't allow those. In some cases, there's, I don't want to say a grandfather clause, but you know, you have to sort of investigate what was there. But the code, when you're building one, must be completely graded, including over a roof. So you just don't walk over a roof, you have to catwalk over a roof. We're going to cover that. How about tags? Seattle has tags on all their fire escapes, required. So today, we're going to be talking about how this program that we're doing with you today is a tagging program to tag all the fire escapes into 3 categories. White means that they're certified. Yellow means they're in repair. There's still some use to them, but they need repair. And red means life safety. Shut the building down or make other arrangements. And let's talk about other arrangements. So you're not going to go into your city and just start shutting down buildings. Other arrangements is scaffolding. So as soon as you get into a situation and somebody doesn't want to fix their fire escape, you know, for $1,000 you can get a scaffolding company to come in, put a staircase scaffolding system that picks up a window or picks up a door or does something, and basically starts buying everybody time, and it's by the hour, by the month. So if somebody wants to delay in any way, you know, you can always pull the trigger on that, and that is basically so you don't have to enter the building, use scaffolding, put it by a legitimate and licensed and insured company to basically satisfy your means of egress. And if 2 are needed, then 2 are needed, 3 are needed, go. But it lets you mothball the fire escape because it's been mothballed anyway. But that program has also now gone on to Oregon. And this is almost like an elevator tag. All your information is on the tag. When you walk on the tag, whether you're the building department, the fire department, and whether you're property maintenance, you look at the tag, it tells you when the next 5-year cycle is. You don't have to go back. The tenants see when the next cycle is, so they can make some noise to the city official or to the guy who's paying the rent, who they pay the rent to. We've done also HUD, training, so that the inspectors for all your Section 8 housing are also part of this. We're going to talk about all the triggers that you can use. And then again, this happened just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It happened in Philadelphia. Birthday party, 3 people went out to have a smoke, 4th-story fire escape, 2 girls and a guy. They all survived the 40-foot fall. He died later, 22 years old. The city and the owner of the building just got sued January 27th. So not even 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, and there's a lawsuit. 2 weeks ago, out in Colorado Springs, and on that link that we sent out to you, you can just click on it and watch the piece. A fire escape collapsed on some workers doing some work on a roof. And basically, it was one of those cantilevers with a weight on the nose, with a cable on the nose. The cable snapped because when he went out to make it go down, it wouldn't go down, so he called a couple of his extra buddies to come out, and then when it finally snapped, the cable caught him underneath here, decapitated him to a certain degree, but he died immediately on the spot. And then there's another one on that link that we sent you about a fireman in Chicago that a ladder, something happened on the ladder and he fell to his death from a ladder. Okay, so we're going to cover all those. Now, what we don't want to be covering is something happening here in your state that's going to make everybody say, well, what are you doing about it? On the Philadelphia case, I actually did a class 9 months ago. And the month, I think it's May. May is the safety month. And I did a class for 50 for the Liberty chapter in Philadelphia. And 9 months later, we had that occur. So, you're not unique. Your fire escapes are bad. Everybody's fire escapes are bad. They should have been swapped out in the 25th to 50th year. They weren't. And everything now is 75 to 100 years old. Okay? So as I go along in the class, feel free to stop and say, have questions. We got plenty of time, and you really want to learn as much as you can about fire escapes, but you also want to say, okay, is this a new job for me? Am I going to have something new to do here? Or is there something that it's automatic, it's a checklist item? We're going to talk about all the checklist items for you, smoke detectors, anything that's involved in buildings, now is gonna have an attached certification, a copy of it. Everything that the building department does with permits, that's gonna have an attached certification. Anything that housing and Section 8 does is gonna have an attached certification. Because all those things, when something happens, where do you run to in a building that has a fire escape? When there's an alarm or something that goes off. The sprinklers go off, I either run to the main fire escape or the main stair, or I run to the fire escape. So with a sprinkler system sign off, what do I want attached with that sprinkler system sign off? Certification of the fire escape. Okay, so we're going to talk about the codes. You already have these codes, so there's no need to rewrite the codes, you just need to interpret them. So let's talk about the codes. The International Fire Code, by the way, Chapter 11, used to be about helicopters, I believe, or helicopter pads or something like that. Now, it says that testing and certification of exterior fire escape systems shall be examined and or tested, which means spot repairs then load tested, or certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years, and a report submitted to the fire official. They took it out of IBC, and now it's in the IFC. Yes?
The problem is Virginia removed that.
This is what's out there. So whether or not something has to be done in your area, but there's other codes that I'm going to be talking about. So this is basically saying that the change has happened nationwide, that they finally started. The biggest piece about this is the 5-year. The 5-year rule is the key here. And if you don't have one, you can have one maybe done locally through a local governing body. So that's the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. Now let's talk about the International Fire Code. It's pretty much saying the same thing. Testing and certification. Any fire escape system found in a state of deterioration or unsafe shall be repaired immediately. Depending upon structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. Now this is the code that they use. That's 1028.6. Very commonly used up in New Jersey. But here's the key. Depending on the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. Okay? So depending. So somebody's opinion is going to start coming into this. Ready? NFPA. They say it the easiest. And this is the only, by the way, this is the only lines related to fire escapes anywhere in the codes. This is it. Regarding maintenance, 2 to 3 sentences. They're all here. But the NFPA says the authority having jurisdiction shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escape stair that has been shown by load test or other satisfactory evidence to have adequate strength. That's what I'm going to talk about to you about today. And then let's take the last one, International Building Code. Testing and certification. All exterior fire escape systems shall be examined or tested and or certified for structural adequacy and safety in lieu of a load test. But for structural adequacy, I'm just filling in a few little extra sentences just to help you understand. But if you go back to the NFPA, it says the authority having jurisdiction. Is that the engineer or is that you? Shall be permitted, and I'm going to use that statement to basically explain the other ones, okay? Shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escape stair that has been shown by load test. They saying anything else? They are. There's an additional part of the sentence, but they're saying load test. What's their first preference? Load test. Physically sandbags, water bags, plates, and put 2,500 pounds on that fire escape. Sometimes in California they want to witness. You got to give them 2 days notice because a lot of times they either want to witness the exam or they want to witness the activity, whatever's going on there, right? The Reg 4 out of LA. So, or other satisfactory evidence. So what that means is, isn't that playing into the other code here? Depending upon the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. Who's going to call whether a load test is coming or not? Is it you or the design professional? So, because it says down here, the authority having jurisdiction shall be permitted to approve a fire escape by load test or other evidence of strength. So if I don't want to load test that building, what do I have to prove to you, the authority having jurisdiction? That I have other evidence of strength. So I'm not able to do a load test. So what do I have to prove to you? Other evidence of strength. So I'm going to come to you and say, listen, I drove down, I rolled down my window, I looked up, she looked good to me, none of it was on the ground. What are you going to order on that guy? No, that is a structural engineer. We're talking about a structural engineer that drives up to a fire escape, rolls down his window, collects a check from the owner, looks up, says, that thing looks pretty good to me. Starts writing one of these, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is structurally sound and has been kept painted and is in conformity with all the codes in Virginia. So what do you have the authority to order upon that if you're not satisfied? Because you've walked it, he didn't walk it, and this thing is a mess. So what can you order upon him? A load test, right? So it's the authority having jurisdictions that shall, your first acceptance is always a load test. Unless somebody wants to go the extra mile and give you what? Other evidence of strength. Other evidence of strength is two things. They can give you an opinion and you can accept that. So remember, you can still accept an opinion. The guy convinces you, oh, look good to me, man, it's not going anywhere. But he didn't write you an insurance, he didn't write you an assurance, he wrote you an opinion that says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. So if anybody gets hurt, a tenant or a fireman, and he gets drawn into court, what's his first legal defense? It was an opinion. So other evidence of strength can also be a full refurb on the fire escape. So he doesn't want a load test. He says, listen, this thing is 75 years old. I've changed every fastener on that fire escape. As you can see by the confidence test, there is no rust in any of the connections. I've also verified or duplicated all the connections back into this 100-year-old building. I do not want to load test this cost at anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per floor onto my client at additional cost because he just fully refurbished it and he spent all his money on bolts and paint. I don't want to load test this. Is that other evidence of strength? Okay, so getting back, depending on the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. Who orders that? The engineer or you? Got it? Now this is fire code and building code, so if all of a sudden the building department says, yeah, we're fine, I'll accept the opinion, what can the fire department do? Still order a load test. Why? No. Say no.
It's not the fire code.
Isn't this, what is the, you have a copy of the fire code, or do you remember the fire code, what it's, huh?
Virginia removed that chapter.
Right, but what do you have, do you guys use building department to pick this up, or do you use the fire department to pick it up, as far as the examination part of it?
We have to rely on the building official's office, since the state took it out of the fire code.
Okay, so then it's back to, there's the International Building Code and the NFPA here, so we're gonna basically do this, the testing and certification. Right now, this is 1001.3, because Boston is out of the building code, is 1001.3. So it used to be, they changed the code number, it just recently changed to 1001.3, and actually, on your book right here, if you go to the first page, is the building code right here. The Mass Building Code, 1001.3, all exterior bridges, steel or wooden stairways, fire escapes, and egress balconies shall be examined and or tested and certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. Now, Mass took the IBC code and added the 5-year into it, because this is currently not in the IBC. Okay? So, with that, you have the ability now to speak with the city officials, speak with the design professionals, and do what? What are they really trying to get you if you use the NFPA as sort of a guide when it comes to satisfying or certifying a fire escape? You want opinions, or you want load tests, or you want other evidence of strength? Which one will you take? Don't forget, I'm trying not to push load tests here. But we're really trying to push on a 75-year-old fire escape. Do you want a load test on a 75-year-old fire escape, or you want other evidence of strength? Because you're supposed to load test these every 5 years. Other evidence of strength is really what's going to do a lot more for the building, because you're going to change every fastener, which should have been done in the 25th to 50th birthday. Here's the OSHA code, 1910.37. During repairs or alterations, employees must not occupy a workplace unless the exit routes required by the subpart are available and existing, fire protections are maintained, or until alternate fire protection is furnished that is provided equivalent level of safety. So in working with your building departments, what's this mean in a lot of buildings that are currently being worked on, occupied, renovated? What's this mean about the second means of egress system there? So you want to work, we'll discuss this later, you want to work with your departments to say, do you want during the building permit process, do you want to have evidence that the fire escape has been certified before the permit is issued or after the permit is issued? Okay, so we're going to go over a couple of ideas here. Now, do you guys all remember the Station 9 fire that happened up in Rhode Island? 2003, more or less about that time? We did a news, a news reporter then wanted to do a news piece right after that happened to say, talking about people getting out of buildings, and she wanted to do a 1-minute piece. When I spoke with her, and she called us at random, she was just calling around trying to get information, she called us at random, and I told her, listen, I inspect a lot of fire escapes, and 75% plus of everything I ever see never passes. 25% to 50% of those have life safety issues on, you know, on those fire escapes, and she goes, I don't believe you. I said, well, why don't we go down to the theater district and look at all those old buildings there, and let's take a look at the fire escapes. She said, sure. So we went down there. I gave her no more than 15 minutes training, and I'm talking about obvious things: falling treads, blown gussets, spalling cement, you know, the obvious smash. That's all I trained her on, okay? And what was supposed to be a 1-minute piece, this is what became.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him,
Oh, I was scared to death.
but the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes, rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the
Correct.
fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files,
But there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, But they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.
Okay, turn the light back on. So, it was 2003, yet in 1973, this is what occurred before they did something. So things do fall back to sleep, you know what I'm saying? And so in 30 years, we just stopped looking at fire escapes again because we didn't have any more fatalities that basically bring the issue. And it took this in 73, and now in Philadelphia, which we'll show you the news piece in Philadelphia, they've got the same situation that just occurred. And in the news piece, they talk about how that building hasn't been looked at for over 50 years by the building department. And as they say here, it's not that it's in the code, but the code is for the owner to maintain and send things in. The owner's supposed to know what he's supposed to have as far as permits and any other documentation he needs. So they can enforce a law, like they said, once they know there's a problem. But when does an owner call in and say, I have a problem with my fire escape, write me a violation? You know what I'm saying? So it becomes, you need to have some trigger. So what did they do once they had this? Because this piece embarrassed the building department. So what they did immediately is they, at the end of all, to close any permits, okay? To close any permits in Boston now, you need a copy of the certification. We can still close the permit. But now the file can't be completely closed until there's a copy of the certification. They don't order a load test, or an inspection. It's to close it. Now, since we found out about the OSHA requirement, when was it supposed to be done? When were you supposed to get a copy based on OSHA? Because it says an employee can't enter. So who's an employee? Is it the electrician, the contractor, the person doing the demo? Well, how about the employee that's a building official? Isn't he an employee too? So does OSHA let you walk into a building that you know only has one means of egress? You know, so this is where we're coming in, that we think the requirement that during the building process, they can't, you need a plot plan, you need a lot of documentation, you need to have your taxes all paid in order to, pull a permit, right? What else do you need? What else should you now need in order to pull a permit? Or demo a building, or do something on that building? What do you need? You need a certification. So this could be one of the automatic triggers. You're doing a smoke detector sign off. What do you need? To let the people occupy the building after you sign a copy of the certification. You're not going to stop any of these processes. You're just asking for a copy. They don't have one, and you sign off the smoke detector, right? So if they don't have a copy, what's that trigger? A request for one. So now they have to resolve that issue in 30 days. Will you stop them from occupying? The answer is usually no, because you've just added a checklist item to the back end. In order for HUD in the Northeast, in order for you to get Section 8 housing, guess what you need? The owner checks the apartment for lead, he checks all these things. What else does he need now? Certification of the fire escape. So there's all these triggers. You have sprinkler system sign-offs on a building that has a fire escape. What are you going to need? A copy of the certification. So these are all ideas so that you don't have to change anything you're doing normally now. You're just adding to the end a copy of something that should have been there already. So you're not ordering one, you're asking for a copy of one. So these are some of the triggers that you want to sort of work together with your maintenance department, fire department, building department, health department. How many times has health department walked in on certain situations, and what do they need? Aside from all the things they need before they'll let you occupy, what do they need? Two means of egress. And by the way, you guys will let somebody slide for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. You know who will not let you slide more than 30 days? If you don't have a second means of egress? Somebody said it.
OSHA?
Insurance company. You want to get somebody to jump? You cancel their insurance. You got 30 days to resolve this issue, and they'll jump. It's amazing. The insurance company says, oh yeah, oh you don't have one? Okay, yeah. Rectify in 30 days or anything that happens that we're not going to pay. So that's another one. How will the insurance company be made aware that there's no two means of egress there?
Witnesses say it sounded like an incredible explosion when the fire escape of a Philadelphia apartment building suddenly collapsed and injured 3 people.
NBC 10 cameras were there as a friend holds on to one of the victim's hands, who is apparently conscious as the victim is placed into an ambulance by medics.
KYW-TV reports a man who was critically injured and 2 women were rushed to local hospitals.
Police believe the bolts of the fire escape appear to have been rusted and dislodged from the brick wall of the apartment building.
The victims fell more than 30 feet to the ground, and now the incident is under investigation. Worth noting, the complex is more than 100 years old and even on Philadelphia's historic registry. Local reporters are all pointing out the city's licenses and inspections department hasn't filed any violations in the past when it comes to the old building, so Sunday's collapse came without warning. Neighbors say the 3 victims, reportedly all in their 20s, may have been partying on the fire escape landing before the incident. For Newsy, I'm Elizabeth Hagan.
I went there to the site because I happened to be in Philadelphia the week after this occurred. This happened on a weekend, like a Saturday, Sunday. I was there on a Tuesday. And what occurred, and you're going to see, is that 3 occupants were on a fire escape, and somehow water, debris, ate this through bolt that goes through the building and has a plate on the inside. There's 4 stories down. So there's 3. And it was 2 girls and a guy, and he died at the hospital, 22 years old. So, this is me at the site. Inspector summary video. We're here in Philadelphia. All right. Some of the preliminary information that I'm getting out of this is that this piece here, which this is the back, used to be up against the building. These 2 brackets here used to be going to that 4th, 5th floor up there, where you now see the 2 blowouts. The blowout on the left and the blowout on the right. And it used to be attached there. And then this staircase, which is here, it went to that platform up there. And that platform up there also had a bracket which is now laying inside the floor below. So they either were going up to that upper floor or they were on this fire escape. And as soon as it let go on this side or up above, which looks like it's all blown out, as soon as it let go there, it basically tore away and fell down, or the bracket that holds one of the legs, one of these legs is sitting on a bracket like this, and it's up there. You can see it on the floor below there. See, there's the bracket right there. There's the other piece that's stuck in the wall. There's the hole in the wall it used to be. That bracket was there to that corner, and it used to support the staircase that used to go to that at the top corner there. So that's how this piece got its way down here, and it kind of did this. But the key is, this is what it looked like, that bracket that used to hold one of the corners, and then it would go from here up to a window that's not here, but it's way up there. But so basically when this released or that other piece released, it pulled away and brought this with it, or if this failed first, and then it released the remaining piece, but I believe everybody was either up above on this piece. But see how it ties into the back? Single bolt with an angle on the back. So this down here represents that there's an angle along the back, an angle along the wall, okay? And this platform is pretty shoddy, but basically creating a corner supported only by this brace. This brace goes into the building. And so should that corner fail, which it did, basically this brace is no longer holding the staircase that came from the upper platform way up above and fed that upper window. So if they were on the platform itself, 2 or 3 people, but look at that whole piece there. That looks like that's not fresh. That looks like it's old. Looks like it's been through rust jacking, ice jacking, and just maybe the cement was getting porous, and it basically pulled away from there. Now, when you come down here and look at this, this is evidence that something was happening between the iron, because this is all eaten. This is where the through bolt used to be into the building. I still want to find out how this was tied into the building, whether it was through bolted into the building or not, because those pieces go in there, right there, okay? And that's the above. So whether or not there was through bolting or was properly attached, but there's evidence here that through ice jacking, rust jacking, this was all getting pushed away. This piece may still be up there and it all rotted away. And there's the other hole for a through bolt or for an epoxy bolt. Usually it's a through bolt. And if it's all eaten away because water got behind here and ate everything, and it looks like it did get behind here. Okay, aside from this, we've got original hardware, we got rust and all the connections, and we've got welded treads and rust and all these treads, rust and all these treads, okay? But you got rust in the connections. So this seems to be through rust jacking and ice jacking that it ate whatever was connecting it. See, this is all rust inside.
A startling scene in downtown Colorado Springs Wednesday after a man falls to his death.
I was just walking up the street to get to the bus stop, and the cops were right there, told me I couldn't come this way.
Police say the victim and several others were working on the roof of this privately owned building when the man fell.
He may have fallen a distance of anywhere from 15 to 20 feet is what's being investigated right now.
Tragically, the man died on scene. It's believed he fell from the fire escape and not the roof or a window, although how it happened is still unknown.
That's what's being investigated right now to determine the actual cause of the accident itself.
Right now, police say the death is not criminal and is being called an industrial accident.
There were several witnesses, individuals who were working with the deceased party, and so we've interviewed them as witnesses in this investigation.
It's really sad. I feel bad for his family. I mean, I don't know him, but prayers and best wishes to his family for sure.
Others in the area expressing similar concerns and well wishes, visibly distraught by the day's events.
I mean, I can't even imagine it, just coming out to do your job one day and just fall off a building. Like, it's really sad.
So this is what happened to him. They were doing work on the roof, on the 5th floor roof. And they were coming back down, and so this is usually 12 to 14 feet off the ground so the trucks can get underneath it. And so there's a cable here that goes onto a loop, into a pulley with a weight usually dangling near someone or above someone. And when he went out to make this thing go down, because that's what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to be perfectly balanced so that when he steps out there, usually when he steps out 2 or 3 steps. So we'll cover cantilevers today. He went out, nothing happened. He went out further, nothing happened. He went out to the end. Nothing happened. So I said, hey, friends of mine that work with me, please come out. So he asked for 2 more friends to come out. Cable snapped, somehow caught him on the chin. I was told he was decapitated. So the fall didn't kill him. Slice and dice before he hit the ground.
I don't understand what you're saying he was doing.
He was working on the roof.
So that's the fire escape.
That's the fire escape, which every contractor uses when they're fixing and restoring the side of a building. And is that thing certified when they're restoring the outside of the envelope of a building? Is the fire escape certified usually when they're using that as a working platform? Now, you're supposed to bring everything you need, scaffolding and everything you need. Because if you're going to use the fire escape, because you have to because it's in your way, and there is a certification on that fire escape, what happens as soon as you as a contractor touch that fire escape and use it as part of your working platform for a specific period of time? Well, you're required to speak with fire prevention because I'm taking a fire protection system offline. I'm blocking it, I'm using it, I'm doing it. And with your authority, you guys will allow him to use that. But then once he's done working with that fire escape, what does he have to do? The contractor. Recertify it and put it back into operational use again, right? So before he even uses it, whose job is it to maintain it? The owner. The owner let him use the fire escape to fix the fifth floor roof. So who's going to have some liability here? Got it? So there's a lot of liability happening on this one simply because the owner, and I was told the owner tried utilizing it first to see what would come down. It wouldn't. And that's when they used 3 people and then it snapped and, okay? There's some other life safety issues that we were involved in. So we'll go for another 5 or 10 more minutes. This one's happening in Boston. This is a 5-story building. This is a 5-story building. But on a hill, your 5-story looks over the roof of the other 5-story. My neighbor's 5-story has a beautiful deck. My window feeds that deck. My girlfriend's over and we're there 2, 3 in the morning and we just had a few drinks partying in the good old city of Boston. And you know, it's a nice summer night. We're just gonna go up there and have a drink. So we're gonna cross the fire escape from my window to that roof deck. Right there, I'm gonna go over. All of a sudden I hear the phone ringing in my apartment. My girlfriend says, you know, I'll get it. And she goes out and it's dark. She doesn't know the lay of the land too well. See the missing railing there? It's up there. The missing railing, she doesn't see it, and they find her in this little courtyard. So, that's a live load test. Okay? So, firemen do live load tests, or dead load tests. Tenants do live load tests, or dead load tests. It all depends if you survive or not. So, here's another one that we were involved in. This is me taking a picture of 3 fire escape systems. One over there that looked exactly like this one. The one I'm on that's over there that looks exactly like this one. And what happened is many years before, the owner of this building wanted to put on a new roof before he condoed the building and turned it into condos. And he and his son put the fire escape, lifted the fire escape off, put the shingles on, put the fire escape back, had some extra bolts. And what's a good mechanic do with all the extra bolts left over after a project? Yeah, you put it in your bolt collector box that you have. So this fire escape, and these are some of the shots from the fire escape, and all the rust. See all the rust? Basically, how this fell was that somebody was selling one of the condos. So there's 5 people on this fire escape. The owner, the real estate agent, the buyer, the real estate agent, plus one of the trustees of the building. They were walking up and down the fire escape, and it basically slid off and fell about 12 feet. So this was a live load test because everybody lived. Everybody had a cell phone. Everybody was under steel and broken bones and blood and crying. And you dialed. Everybody dialed. Who you dialed?
911.
Oh, you dial your lawyer. Then you have your lawyer dial now 911. Because your lawyer got to get there first and take what? So this put this condo association in a court action that basically, stopped. There was 5 condos here. The problem is that not only did this one fall, the one that I was taking photographs from was ready to collapse, and the one that was on the other side was ready to collapse. So here's another case I was involved in Iowa. 3 kids went to watch fireworks on 4th of July. The case here is easy. The guy owns a lot of buildings throughout Iowa to service the students, 40, 50 buildings. And they needed to fix some siding and some window issue right here. And that bracket right there used to be here, through-bolted into the building. So they went there, they took it out, they fixed the siding, they fixed the window, then they put it back with a lag screw. So they had a 1/2-inch hole and they put back a 1/2-inch lag screw. So when the kids ran up the fire escape and watching the fireworks, they went boom, boom. And what happened was, after the accident, they preserved the evidence in a field like blocks away. This is us walking around a field with lawyers, and this is how they preserve the evidence. But what happened is, we found the smoking gun because the bolt was still in the bracket.
Please.
This lawyer was all happy that, oh, we'll document this. So they put it back, they through bolted it back in, and to be just safe, they doubled down and they put a leg on the ground, a leg to the roof. On pressure treated sleeper, or right on the shingles? Right on the shingles. Right? And see that corner over there? Which is that corner over there? This thing sort of wrapped the corner, and there was a bolt, a screw hole in that corner to tie it. They didn't even bother putting that bolt back in, because when I got there and we did some additional, and it didn't have the legs on it. See these legs? This was freestanding when it was first. They put these legs on pressure treated sleepers, or right on the shingle. Right on the shingles, okay? So but I was still able to go there, grab that bottom, walk it out 1 to 2 feet, and then walk it back, and put it back, because they didn't bother bolting it down to the corner. So that just means that sometimes it's not being watched, no engineer oversight, no building permit, whatever occurred, but these things do occur on these wacky fire escapes, okay? You asked me about people back into the building? Shut the lights.
Up the hoses. But earlier in the night when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments, because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. Our firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in, except the one unit where the fire was in. They said, that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson. Honestly,
No, they call that a reset. You know what I'm saying? It's called a reset. Okay? So, now on there, one of the most disturbing pictures is an 8-year-old child trying to come down a ladder that won't go down. And below was either a fireman saying, jump, 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 saying that's what an 8 to 10-year-old child. How many of you have trained your children on fire escape ladders? Right? And 50 people. Now, I examined this fire escape 6 months later. Not this fire, the whole complex was in a state of collapse 6 months later. So it's not just, so it all depends on how you want to handle it and how much attention you really want, because a lot of times, and and we're going to end on this note and then continue. I'm going to give you guys the break. But imagine this, you walk into a building right now, residential or commercial, and you have that beautiful front end stairs, and you walk towards the back end stairs that was there last year. And some guy there just took out the whole entire stairs because he needed walk-in closets for all the apartments. What do you do to that building? You shut it down, right? You're pissed. You walk in, you get to the back, there used to be a stair, it's walk-in closets now, you shut the building down. Same building, but it has the front stair, and it has a rear fire escape system. And that rear fire escape system, which you didn't check the first time you were there, you get back and you just kind of look out the window and all the treads are dangling. What you do? You don't shut the building down. Now you're out of violation. Hey, you need to get that fixed. So interior stairs get all the respect. Fire escape stairs are the bastard child of egress. You guys won't use them, so whenever they look like crap, what do you guys write? Violations that can go on endlessly, and you know how you guys really enforce a violation? You bring the guy to court, which means 30 to 60 more days of paperwork. As opposed to, if a life safety issue is evident, what can you do? Shut it down. They want to continue mothballing it? Allow it. What do they have to put up immediately so that the building can occupy that night or the next day? Scaffolding, that's all. So you're good. You just need to be taught what is the correct response, because a lot of times an interior fire escape will piss you off. But an exterior fire escape, it's like a homeless person. You're like, I know he's back there, but I'm not going to go back there and see the situation because I don't want to deal with it at this time. And it's snowing already. So fire escapes, they're the bastard child of egress because they were overbuilt when they first went up. And you know what happened to them in the first 25 years? Nothing. Who they killed? Nobody. 50 years later, you know who they hurt? Nobody. You know what they did? They held on. Strong. Then all of a sudden now, guys, we're not even at 50 anymore with these guys. They're 75 years old. There are hand grenades all over the country, and guess what's already been pulled out? And they're just laying up against something that all you need is a tenant to kick it, a fireman to trip over it. That's why one of the things, and I'll end it on this note. Let's go take a break. We'll be back here. We want to pass new legislation nationwide that all rent from now on must be collected through the fire escape by the owner, not his agent. And on that note, let's take a break.